Hey everybody, welcome back to The Best Thing Ever, a show about the stuff our friends like. This is episode 24. This week we're talking about half-assing. This is not that our guest postponed a week and that we had to come up with a topic on really short notice, even though there's only three of us. This is a very specific thing that we really enjoy that could be the best thing ever, called half-assing. This is the way the show works.
We'll do it again.
Yep.
You know, maybe you don't understand the context for it. Maybe we plan this out months in advance.
I
don't know.
I feel like
Possibly.
you need. Well, I feel like you need the it. It's half-assing it. I feel like half-assing could be so many different things, right? Where it's just like you're putting half of a butt.
This is like
on
a way
thing.
that like religious kids get around. Like this is the thing they're allowed to do
yes,
in
we
bed.
half-assed. It's okay. No, but I feel like half-assing it.
Half-assing
I need that
is
it.
the key. And if you're watching us on YouTube, youtube.com/AlexFalcone, you can see these sweet visuals like this AI-generated image of a donkey broken in half with a light exploding out of the middle of it.
It looks like an amazing magician's act, right? It's like that kind of
Yes,
thing.
it was
Like, I'm
supposed
going to
to
break
look
a
like
donkey in
magic trick.
half.
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So as you guys know, I am, especially on the internet, I can be kind of a hater. This week I've hated on things like advertisements, the friend zone, a tampon necklace, and the reckless disregard for which the universe treats the ownership of pens. And I'm right about all those things. But I'm trying to balance those out on the podcast each week by picking something that one of my friends like and learning more about and finding new ways to love it. Each week we give a presentation, a deep dive into the topic's history and philosophy, and then rank it on the master list of best things ever, things that I now officially love entirely. Let me introduce you to the team that's going to talk about half-assing it today. Oh, wait, today's topic is half-assing, including this whale on a cell phone, this long hair guy who writes hits, and receiving partial credit on math tests. All that and more is coming up in our half-assing episode. Let me introduce you to the panel today in a game that I call Two Hosts and a Lie. I'm going to introduce each of us with a fun fact. Two of them will be true, one of them will not be true, and you'll find out at the end. I'm your host, Alex Falcone, and a fun fact about me is that I once won an oldies-themed trivia contest. It was on a cruise ship, and everyone else in the room was actually old.
Can you give me
Like a stolen
one?
valor trivia contest.
You don't have to even give me like a question. Just give me one answer.
The Beach Boys.
Richie Valens.
Yeah, Richie Valens,
Big
probably.
Bopper.
The big.
Yeah, the day the music died. My co-host joining us today, our head marketing executive, his name is Ezra Fox, and a fun fact about him is he cannot roll his tongue or his R's.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess,
As
like,
you
with my
could
hands,
prove
I
this
could.
wrong right now, just roll your R.
I mean, who knows? Was it sandbagging it? Was that real?
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to tell. You could have been half-assing. Also joining us around at the panel today, our chief historian, Mr. Anthony Lopez. And a fun fact about him, Nicolas Cage came into his work on a day when he was off, when he wasn't there.
Biggest regret in my life. I also wanted to say this is not a lie that I also have trouble rolling my O's. Weird fact.
It's harder for someone with Spanish descendants, right? Or is it Spanish descent? You have to do it. Like legally,
Yeah.
I think you have to roll some R's.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed at my cousin's quinceañera because I couldn't do it. They wouldn't let me do the door.
Anthony, we're lucky we're not pirates. I feel like that's the thing that I'm. I'm
That's true for both of you. Or maybe it's unlucky for you, because you're really good at rolling your R's. So today, as I mentioned, the topic is half-assing, and I think for our core memory, where we first, instead of just the first time you ever remember not trying hard at something, what I really want is I want to know if you guys played hooky much. Do you guys ever play hooky in school?
I almost did once and never did, but this is
What does
the
it
right
mean to
call.
almost play hooky?
So my friends were going to see the Matrix sequel.
Oh, nice.
And I was
Reloaded
like,
of Evolutions.
I'm pretty sure it was Reloaded. And I was like, man, this seems like a great moment I should really be there for. And I didn't. I went to school. And I later on felt very fine about that. But in the moment, I was like, man, did I miss out on like a key thing?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be fucking honest with you. You probably would have learned more from going to see Reloaded than you would have learned. You would have learned all these other words you didn't know. You would have learned about the philosophical concept of like determinism and like cause and effect.
Did you need to know
right?
determinism in high school? Did you? I don't know.
You would have learned about, like old guys being like the Matrix
Like of
is
all
really
the
a
things to play
system of
hooky
a
to do, to
control.
watch a movie, I just feel like you can watch movies at night. Like you're not really, and you're not. You're not like out. I don't know. What
yeah,
do you're not.
now you can. I'm talking about like this is pretty early. This is when Ezra was young. This was in the 1980s, right? I don't know
When
how
the
old
Matrix
Ezra is.
Reloaded came out.
Yeah. When it came out in '74, Ezra was there
Yeah.
in line during the day.
But I mean, like, I get it. I think that's a valid reason. I played hooky quite a bit. I skipped school a lot. If
Yeah.
that's not obvious.
That was gonna be my guess between the two of you. Yeah.
I mean, I would skip school within within just certain classes. I just wouldn't go to a class if I didn't like a teacher. Then I
you
would come
skip
back.
school so much,
Where would
Anthony. You skipped while skipping school, and you had to go back into school
Yeah.
as a result.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
played
I
hooky
would,
from your friends.
What?
Yeah.
Wait. How do you? If you skip just a class and then come back, where did you go in the intervening 90 minutes?
Oh, we would go to a friend's house in the area. We would go get food. We'd
And
go
then
see
just
a
come back.
movie. And then just come back. 'Cause I don't like that Mr. Groves. I love Mr. Ford and Rishel, though.
Sure,
so I'm not going
sure.
to miss their classes because their classes are good. But this other teacher I can't stand. I'll miss one a week.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just won't show up.
I never missed a whole day. I only missed a class, but I missed twice. I skipped it out on a class, but it was the last class of the day, so I didn't have to come back afterwards. And it was because we had this substitute in biology who would make you sign in, so they didn't have to take roll, and then fold up that paper, put it in a drawer, and then do movies or whatever. So whenever we had her, I would just sign the form and then just immediately stand up and walk out.
Wait, so you played hooky on a movie?
Well, or whatever. I don't know. She's teaching biology. She could have done whatever. But I only skipped when I could sign in first, so that I would never be caught for it.
These are all good approaches where it's like this is like the don't care will not be there. This is like the I want to get credit for this, and this is like a lawful good approach on my side. Where it's like,
I definitely feel like I'm between the two of you on this subject.
Yeah, that's great.
Look,
Which is
here's-
how I
here's-
guessed.
Here's the facts, the hard facts, all right? If I was getting any other country's most other countries' education system, no, it would probably be a big loss. But
Yeah.
here's the fucking truth.
No, it's true.
If you are a student in the American education system, skip as much as you want. You really are not missing anything.
I mean, this is my advice to
like-
kids is if you think you can tell which classes are valuable, you can. You are right. Like
Yeah.
my experience, I remember because definitely there was a thing in high school where I thought I was smarter than a lot of my teachers, and I was probably wrong about a couple of those. But half of them got fired for doing things that were illegal since I left that class. Like one of my teachers got fired for buying beer for the baseball team while they were on road trips. Like I had. Like half of my teachers are real estate agents now. Like I might have been right about that.
I
is
have,
all.
I have a handful of friends who are teachers. And let me tell you something. They're hungover like every day. They fucking hate their jobs. They don't like the students. They're
mean,
surrounded by
yeah.
horrible curriculum being forced down their throats, making them do things they don't want to teach. And it's
Teachers
only
are
gonna
awesome,
keep
and
getting
also
worse.
a lot of
Yeah.
them are really sad right now, especially.
No, yeah, I
so.
mean, teachers, I have a lot of respect for teachers. Obviously, like I said, a lot of my friends are literally teachers. I love
Yeah.
them. I have a huge amount of respect
Some
for
of my
them.
best friends
it's
are
the
teachers.
system that they are in. It's the
Yes.
American education system in general is such a goddamn joke.
Well, so that's why people have YouTube videos and podcasts now, is to learn the things that they should have learned in school, and that's one of the things we're going to provide today. So our way
we
of
have to
tackling
teach
the
people.
topic of half-assing is we're going to give you, instead of one topic, we're going to each give you a short topic, just like we did in our variety episode. So we have three different, we're going to call them shallow dives today. So we have three different short things you can learn from us. Do either of you have a strong desire to go first? Or do you want to hang out with me first?
I can go first. I have a
Anthony's gonna
pretty
go first.
simple,
Yeah.
simple one I sort of want to talk about, kind of picking up on some of the stuff. Extra research I did last week.
Oh, yeah. So last week you talked about new metal.
Yes.
I'm very excited to learn more about it. Actually, why I want to start this. Yes, this is perfect. So I'm going to start before you start your deep dive into this. I want to jump ahead to a comment we received.
Oh.
You were 1-1. We had two YouTube comments. One was very much in your favor. One was a little split on you. So this is a comment from YouTube that said, positing Max Martin as the antithesis of new metal is sort of a bad take, as Korn preceded Max Martin's first hit by a few years. Other than that, good job laying out the history. So,
Yeah.
I guess is that a backhanded insult? Anyway, wanted to disagree with you about Max Martin, but great
Yeah,
news
and-
to that commenter because you have more Max Martin facts coming at you now.
Well, yeah,
Facts,
I
Martin.
didn't really. I didn't
Facts,
mean
Martin.
to say. What I meant by that. I didn't mean to say that like Corn's first album was a reaction to Max Martin.
Right.
What I was meant is sort of the popularity by the end of the 90s and early 2000s because Max Martin's sound had become so ubiquitous at that time. And I do think that there was an interesting thing that, like, Max Martin had he never quite went away, but he certainly had a less successful period throughout the mid to 2000s and the early aughts, and it's only in like the last 10 years that he has kind of like really launched back up into fame.
Dude, I know that feeling, man. You're just cranking out hits. You're on the top of the world, and then all of a sudden, you get the yips. That we've all had the songwriting yips.
Yes,
and not like in like that good get a job yip 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 get a job song. The bad yips.
There's also that it's a Who Let the Dogs Out version, but it's for small dogs.
Who let the small dogs
Who
out?
let the small dogs out? Yip 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 yip.
Yeah.
Who let the small ones out?
That's a separate fact, unrelated thing that can happen to you.
But like this idea that like he's back now as new metal is getting. He's at the second peak of his career, the last like 5 years as new metal is starting to come back up. I think is an interesting coincidence.
Yeah.
But Max Martin, doing a lot of research about him. I actually don't want to talk about Max Martin. I want to talk about something else I learned from him. But I do I do want to give you a little bit of what I promised on the can. So I just want to tell you some facts I learned about Max Martin that are really interesting. Something that I've learned, this isn't true necessarily with all the biggest songwriters, but what's very funny about Max Martin and sort of his proteges is this idea that like he used to be a metal singer and he was in a metal band. He was going to be a metal musician.
Old metal.
That was his plan. Yes.
Also, if you look at the picture of Max Martin, if you were like, hey, what does this guy do?
Metal.
First guess is metal singer. Yeah, first three guesses are going to be metal singer related.
Maybe second.
But yeah,
fourth guess is like works at a bowling alley.
I would say fifth guess, though, hairstylist. Because he has very
nice
shiny hair. He's taking good care of that long hair.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but he was originally a metal singer. He got a job writing tunes for Chevron, I believe is how it's pronounced. It's a Swedish music company. And they really defined a lot of the hits of the late 90s. Kind of the sound of pop music comes from this studio in Sweden. And what's really
I don't know if we know if everybody thinks when you think of pop music how much Swedish the Swedish mafia has gotten into us.
Yeah, and what's crazy is like the story of Britney Spears, right? Like why Britney Spears exists.
Is it because of Robin?
It's because of Robin, yes. So Robin is
definitely going to say that it was because Papa Spears and Mama Spears loved each other very much. But yeah, okay. So what's Robin? What?
I don't actually knowing the Spears' parents, like not personally, but of them. I don't know if there was ever love in that.
They
marriage.
Tolerated each other very much. Yeah.
Especially Papa Spears is not necessarily a great guy, from what it seems. Doesn't seem like the most loving dad on the planet.
No, that's certainly true.
But yeah, so he worked with Robin, who is everyone kind of knows her now for her sort of last 10 years as well, her kind of late resurgence with like Dancing on My Own, Call Your Girlfriend, like some of the most banger pop hits in the world, right? And definitely if like her new sound has changed the way modern pop music sounds, but her original sound changed the way pop music sounded in the 90s because she had a big hit in the 90s. And what happened was the studios were like, we need Robin. I want to get Robin. We have to get her over here, make her a big American star. And Robin was like, no, I don't want to do that. So they went to Max Martin, who helped write one of Robin's hits, and he was basically like, oh, you want Robins? I can fucking make you a Robin. I can make you Robins all day, you guys. So that's where Britney Spears came from. Okay, Britney Spears was a straight reaction to the success of Robin. They brought over the guy who wrote her hit for her. He wrote all of her hits, like... It's very funny.
So he had written Robin's hits, and that we wanted an American remake.
Robin also writes a lot of her songs, right?
And I think one of the reasons
Max has helped on some of Robin's hits, and then they were like, "We want an American remake." So they found this girl from the Mickey Mouse Club, and they hired the songwriter, and they go.
Yes, exactly. And it's really funny if you listen.
Cool.
I listened to a lot of interviews about working with Max Martin, and like the different acts you listen to, like someone like Justin Timberlake or Pink or Taylor Swift talk about him, and they really talk about this sort of like collaborative effort, right? And this sort of like what's so great about Max is like he's a real like he's a perfectionist, but he's not like mean. He really knows what he wants, and he'll help you get there. And he's incredibly collaborative. And then you listen to like Britney Spears or like the Backstreet Boys talking about him, and like Britney Spears is really funny because she's like he's great. Like you come in, the song's done, and he goes, "Sing this." And you're out. That's it. Like he just writes everything. You don't have to worry about anything. So he definitely kind of has.
He can go both. We do both speeds of
know?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Dude,
it's just,
I do feel like there's this like you have to be a singer songwriter and it's better thing that people have now. They want to believe that every songwriter, every performer writes all their own songs because it's cooler. But like Frank Sinatra was not the world's best songwriter. Like you could just be great at singing.
Yeah,
No,
right.
and
I don't need my chefs to like be farmers as well. I think
Exactly.
that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Perfect.
and
Much
there's
better
a
metaphor
lot
than mine.
of great bands. Like I don't know if they're great bands, but you talk about like bands like Aerosmith or Kiss or like Bon Jovi. A lot of like rock bands who are famous from always using songwriters, right? Like that has been a very common thing in a long time. Most people just don't talk about it.
Yeah, and I think that's rad. I think, and it's cool that Max Martin. He wasn't a metal singer. That was not the thing that the universe needed him to do. Not the universe, the industrial music complex needed him to do. But they were like, look, you are this thing and Britney Spears is this other thing, and together you make a thing that's better than either of you by yourselves. That's a cool thing for it to exist in art.
And one of the things that's kind of actually the real point I want to talk about, because when reading about doing research about Max Martin, you find a lot of interviews about him as a person, and one of the things that comes up a lot is how humble he is. And when he talks about fame, he talks about how like fame is really fucked up. Like human beings won't evolve to be famous. We shouldn't be famous. He feels bad that he helps make people famous. But there is this concept that I learned about this week that I want to actually talk about, because I think this is a really interesting story here. Have you ever heard of Jantelagen? I believe is what it's called. Jantelagen?
No.
Law of Jante? So this is something that's very, very big in Scandinavian culture. Oh my God. And just sort of like Denmark, Sweden. This is basically like the rules of conduct for the entire Scandinavian countries, right? So it's based off a book that came out in the 1930s, and it's the antithesis of the idea of being an American. But it is essentially why in Scandinavia, if you like brag about your successes, if you show your wealth, if you are like a cocky person, it's like considered horribly bad to do. It's against all social norms. But the laws of Jantelagen are 10 rules that state you are not to think you are anything special. You are not to think you are as good as us. You're not to think you are smarter than us. You're not to convince yourself that you are better than us. You are not to think you know more than us. You're not to think that you are more important than us. You are not to think that you are good at anything. You're not to laugh at us. You're not to think anyone cares about you. And you're not to think you can teach us anything. So these are the rules.
This feels like a
Jante.
psychology experiment where they're like, can you raise a child without love?
This is why Danish countries are so much better and nicer than American countries.
Why the Scandinavian
this
countries?
isn't saying anything about love. This is just saying like, hey, don't be like a dick, right? And don't put yourself above society.
Don't ever think somebody cares about you. That one feels like it might be kind of harsh for children.
I think it's like, don't take it personally.
I mean, like some of these are great, but also you're not as good as us. Is like, hey, the person who wrote this book is a god, and everyone else is an idiot. Also, you're not to think you have anything to teach us is really weird. Like, I think one of the things that makes it rad is if the whole point of this is you're going to teach me this thing that I don't know, and I'm going to teach you a thing you don't know. I think if you have something, teach people.
No, I mean that's not again. You're kind of misinterpreting the rules here in
Sure,
a very
all I have to go off is what they
the
actually
rules.
said.
Yes, but again, this is being translated from English from
Sure.
Swedish into English. Who knows what the context actually is, right? But like this
So
idea.
are people cool about them? Do the people like the rules? I guess when
Yes,
they...
this is. If you go to any Scandinavian country, from my understanding, this is essentially the social norms that all Scandinavian countries are built around. This is like
What's it called again?
Jantelagen, the law of Jante, Jante. Jantelagen is Jantelagen. But yeah, so it's really big in Scandinavian countries, and it essentially changes the entire way society works, right? So like you're not, and it's like comparing to American systems and American sort of like, especially, the American ideology of like radical individualism, right? Which I think has caused so much damage to this world, and it's good in a lot of ways, but like, like there's like I think especially like, as a bunch of people who have done stand up, right? Like stand up, one of the reasons that it makes it such an American art form is because of this underlying idea of radical individualism that like permeates American culture so much, right? Stand up is the art form of a single person showing their individualness on stage and making people laugh, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you get a healthy stand up culture in this type of rule set, but like.
Well, given our best thing ever ranking, that seems like maybe we're fine with that.
But yeah, it's so fascinating. I had no idea that this was a thing. I love learning about like societal norms like this. But yeah, the law of Jante is a really fascinating thing, and it's a part of why like Max Merton isn't the most famous person in the world, right? Because he follows these rules of like, even though he's incredibly successful, he doesn't ever flaunt it. He doesn't do interviews talking about how great he is. He doesn't like being told how great he is. He always talks about the collaborative process. He always gives credit where credit is due, right? He never like takes credit for himself when he can like share it among a bunch of other people. And this like permeates through all of like Scandinavian culture in a way that it's like impossible for me to wrap my head around as an American. Like I said,
there's one example of this that came up when I was trying to find out how to spell it is like the Swedish actor Alexander Skarsgård talking about how like he won an Emmy and a Golden Globe, and he was like he was not like proud and couldn't brag about it. He was like, that's not how this works. That's not what Janta wants for us.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, so this comes from a fictional book that was written in 1930 in Danish, I believe, is the original language. So it's not even that old. But in essentially about 190 years, it has completely changed the way Scandinavian culture works and like its societal norms. I mean, I imagine a lot of these ideas had a underpinning in Scandinavian culture before this, and this book kind of just helped.
Yeah, have to
make them solid,
solidify
and,
it.
Solidify it. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. But yeah, so like it's really interesting. Like I'm like trying to do research about new metal, and I go down this long Max Merton hole, and I learn all about his past, and then from that I go down this even deeper hole, learning about Jantelagen.
I love it.
And it was so fascinating this week. I've been thinking about this a lot.
So your mini lesson for the day is Jantelagen, and I just want everyone to know, even while he was explaining it, Anthony did not think at any point he had something to teach you.
No, I did not.
He's very dedicated to it.
I mean, I think that's kind of look. This is intense, I guess, and it looks like this is kind of solidifying stuff that's already in there, and it feels really foreign, necessarily. So it's kind of interesting. Like, there are lots of different starting points for a culture. You don't have to like start in the how do I make myself as important as possible. Yeah. And I think there's probably a right amount of Jantelagen and a right amount of like, this like I can do whatever I want Americanness.
If we could find a society, a middle ground between this,
find me that country.
Hey, I don't care if you have cancer. I ain't getting the jab, and I'm gonna breathe on you.
Right.
And I'm gonna walk into my store with my machine gun on my back because I'm an American, and fuck you. Customer's always right. I want to speak to your manager. I'm gonna if we could find a middle ground between those two extremes, the world would genuinely be such a better place.
I do like the American Jantelagen where it's like rule number 1: I would like to speak to a manager.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Rule number 2: you are the main character of reality.
Of every situation,
Everyone
yeah.
else is an NPC. Be
Yeah.
as solipsistic as you can.
Yeah. It's a long. The
yeah.
rule number 2 is kind of long, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's great. So that's Anthony's mini lesson, Jantelagen. Let's move on to topic 2 of our shallow dives. I'm gonna go second because as yours feels like the perfect third.
Oh my gosh, all right.
cleaner. So I'm gonna. You guys may have noticed. You guys might have seen the news this week. Aliens were in the news this week.
I was trying to do the X-Files theme, but I can't.
Oh,
do
okay.
it.
You have such a great history with singing themes on this show.
Oh yeah.
close enough.
I got that one.
Right,
Wait, I
so-
actually don't know about aliens being in the news.
What? You don't know?
No, I don't know about aliens being in the news.
Good for you
That's
not
something an
watching the news.
alien
Okay, so this
undercover would say, isn't it, Alex? Huh.
So this doofus guy here had a thing in front of Congress where he
Who is this doofus guy?
he's
for
a
people who can't
he's
see
a
us?
former military intelligence officer, possibly current military
He
intelligence
is a
officer.
guy who I only thing I know about this guy is he seems to his whole thing is that like somebody told me, somebody very reliable told me some crazy shit.
Yeah, so there was Congress had okay, I didn't think I have to talk about this part. Congress had a committee hearing last week about the existence of aliens, and they interviewed
UAPs.
2 fighter pilots who were like, "I've seen some shit," which great. And then the third one was this military intelligence officer who was like, "There are aliens. They're real. The government has them. We've captured a ship. We're reverse engineering it as we speak." But he was very careful. He's never seen anything. It was the most pure hearsay you've ever heard. He just said over and over again, "I've been told this. Reliable people said this. I have spoken to people who have seen this." And there's this weird. The internet's been really weird about it this week, where there's like 10 million people saying the government admitted there are aliens. Why is no one talking about it? But there's just all people talking about how no one's talking about it. But also it was really, really stupid. And anyway, so,
this guy,
whatever.
best way I could describe it, I know it's a photo, so it's a little unfair, but he looks like he's never blinked in his life.
I mean, he does have like kind of his skull shape looks like there may be something hiding inside of it. I don't know.
I'm sure
he
this is a real
definitely looks
person.
like you
This
can
is-
picture
this
that
probably
face
mean, but-
opening, and there's a small character driving joysticks in it. And
It's
I mean, it genuinely does feel that we are like slowly, like getting inoculated to the idea of aliens being here, right? Like it does feel like almost like there was a controlled, slow.
I assumed you would be on that side of this. It doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like everyone in the government has somewhat of in America, because the way the American Jantelagen works, government officials always get political benefit from saying that they don't trust the government. So this was just a hearing of people being like, "We don't trust us either," which is stupid.
Well, I don't even mean this hearing. I'm talking about the last like 10 years.
There's just
the
not.
way
They're
very
not
slow,
aliens. This is
weird
so.
things
There's not.
have
That's not.
come out.
Yeah. This is just
That
it's a cool
all,
thing
like-
to talk about. There's no aliens.
oh wait, but Alex, on the other hand, what if there's aliens?
So there are aliens for sure. There are aliens. They're just not here, and they're not.
Oh.
It's like
Well, what if they're here?
what's so funny about this guy's testimony is that he's like, "Look, I have good authority that we have aliens, and it just so happens they're exactly like all of the alien conspiracies you've ever heard about. Like, it's not." There's no part that's like, and also we know secret information. It's like all the secret information he knows is just stuff that everybody already has talked about.
Aren't people
Like,
happy
it's so boring.
though to hear this? Doesn't it make people feel good? Isn't he like doing God's work? Where it's like, hey guys,
Yeah, people liked it. Anyway,
Yeah,
I don't
right?
want to talk
So
about that. We don't need to
give
talk
it-
about
give
it
it to
anymore.
them.
You can just read the news as. Here's what I want to
I
talk
don't wanna
about,
do that.
which is this reminded me that a lot of people, I think, do not know the story of the Roswell crash that was like one of the founding incidents in there are aliens that have crash landed on Earth and we're reverse engineering them. A lot of people.
The smoking man was there, and so was Agent Black from Men in Black, played
Yes.
by.
Yep.
He was there.
That talking dog from Men in Black too.
Yeah, and the
Look, yeah,
smoking man's
it's
from the
been, it's been,
X-Files.
so I love the story of Project Mogul, which is the thing that actually happened. And I've been surprised when people are talking about this guy in the news pretending they're aliens that they don't know what actually happened at Roswell with Project Mogul, because it's a cool story. This is a cool thing that has happened. So you guys said you don't know Project Mogul, right? You don't know what this is?
as far as I know, no.
No,
Great. So
I
let's
mean,
start
I
with
know
the-
some shit about Roswell and Alien and Area 51. And
Great,
like,
okay.
what
So let's
goes
start
on
with
the
the
there.
game,
mystery.
Area 51, pretty well.
Oh yeah. Shoot some of them, not the other ones.
I shut them all.
So let's start with a mystery. Then we're gonna build up to it. Let's start with a mystery. So during World War II, American pilots frequently in their like first aid bags were given a metal sphere that weighs about 5 pounds, and they were told if you crash into the ocean, toss this ball overboard into the water, we'll find you. Because the ocean is very big, our radio signals were not good. We didn't have satellite communication back then. We were like, here's how we'll know where you are if you crash anywhere in the ocean. Throw this metal ball in the water, and we'll come find you.
Question.
Yes, Ez.
Is it because the metal ball was very expensive, and they're like, well, shit, we got to get that ball back, so we're going to find it. I don't know what it's going to take, but it's like a deposit.
We're not committed to you and your personhood, but we really don't want to waste this ball.
We can make pilots as fast as we want. These goddamn balls, though.
My favorite ball.
It was really tricky. So the great thing about this were two things. One, if the pilot got captured and they were tortured and the enemy was like, how does this system work? They would not know. They would have no idea. And the other thing that's great about it is it did work. So, and if the enemies were to take the ball, cut them in half, try to figure out what the crazy electronics are inside, nothing. It's hollow. It is a hollow metal sphere, and it absolutely worked if you threw it overboard to help people find you when you were lost in the ocean. As guess.
Can I have one?
So it's actually hard to find real pictures of the actual SOFAR spheres. This one is a later scientific project that I'm showing you a picture of now, but it just looks like a ball. But it's not one of the actual ones from the pilots because of some. It's interesting how much of this is still like little bits of it are still classified, but most of it is declassified by now. But so here's what happened. Here's how that works. Here's why it worked. And this I learned this originally in a physics class, and I want to be light on the physics here. But here's the basic physics. You know how when you yell to somebody far away, they can't hear you. But if you use you got a cardboard wrapping paper tube and you talk into it, the sound goes farther, right?
Yes.
You know that. And the reason for that is that in the world, in 3D space, when you speak, sound goes out in all the directions, and so it gets weaker and weaker and weaker as the 3D space gets bigger. Mm-hmm. You talk into a tube, it bounces around and it keeps going straight. Mm-hmm. It turns out, in water, sounds in water, the distance they will travel and the speed they will travel has to do with the temperature of the water. So as it gets colder, the sounds do not go as far. They do not go as fast. They're slower. But it also has to do with
slows down when it gets cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
it's cold, so the sound, the molecules bumping into each other, it slows down. But as pressure goes up in water, sound travels faster. So there is a point, if you're going down, because as you go down through the ocean, the water gets colder and colder and colder, but it also gets higher and higher pressure. There's a perfect point where those two meet, where the amount that it's slowing down because of the cold and the amount that it's speeding up because of the pressure is exactly the same. And at that point, sound travels forever. What? Basically. It's called the sound channel or the SOFAR channel, which is SOFAR. But the SOFAR channel means, so what happens is any sound that goes up, now it speeds up because it's getting into warmer water. And if it goes down, it speeds up because it's getting into more pressure. So it all comes back together and it continues to travel. And it'll travel basically around the world. And this was originally discovered by a scientist named Maurice Ewing. He's credited with discovering it. Obviously, it was discovered way before that by whales, because whales love the SOFAR channel. Whales go down to the SOFAR channel and they sing to each other across the ocean because sound travels so far in that point in the water. That's a real thing that exists.
So if the whale just like wants some quiet time, they just like go up or down like
exactly
100 feet.
Well, and in fact, that's exactly right. And in fact, if you watch Hunt for Red October, or better yet, read the book Hunt for Red October, they say that once they figure this out, submarines would carefully avoid going into the sound channel because that would make it easier to spy on them from far away. So you'd carefully never go down into that. And if you read Hunt for Red October instead of watching it, he goes into a lot of detail about how sound works underwater, and it's really, really interesting. And most of it is true.
If you watch Hunt for Red October, it's a good movie.
Yes.
It's probably more enjoyable than reading the book.
I mean, it's a really interesting book, and I read it because my physics teacher recommended it. But that movie was great. It's a phenomenal movie.
It's a great movie.
Question. In the book version, do they have the correct Sean Connery spellings of all the dialogue that he has?
I think
Does the book start in Russian and then go, and now imagine we're going into his mouth and the world's transformed into English?
Yeah, that's exactly how the book is. Yeah,
amazing.
The pages turn into mouth-colored pages, so you can tell you're in his mouth.
Love that.
So all you have, so what you
God,
you
that's
can
a
do,
good movie, man.
What Maurice Ewing figured out is that you can just drop microphones into the ocean at that depth and basically hear everything that's happening around the whole ocean. So if you make a metal sphere of exactly the right strength, that you can drop it into the ocean and it'll deal with the pressure, and then right when it gets to the sound channel, it'll pop. And that pop will be able to hear it at all your microphones around the world. So if you have microphones in a few places, if you have it in just a couple of the right places, like here's the SOSUS array, which is the microphones we have around the world. If you hear that pop in 3 different places, that's enough to triangulate where it came from. So you can, just like the way cell phone towers or GPS works, is it 3 different points, the sound arrives at slightly different times, they know where you are, they send somebody, a rescue boat, to come pick you up out of the ocean. The sphere worked.
Yeah, but I also imagine that some places that if you crash, they'd be like, well, yeah, he's there. Sucks for him. We ain't going over there to get him. Yeah.
It's very, very plausible.
At least we know where he's going to drown. That's nice.
So this is a thing we still use it for like science now, and we do listen to like Spy on Whales, and so that's why I think of it as like the whale cell phone network. So
wait, we got you because whales are rising up against us, right? Isn't that a thing that's happening?
Not in nearly large enough numbers, but yes, some of them do seem to be, and I'm on their side.
Wait, what are they doing?
One flame at a time.
How are you not reading the news? There's whales that are attacking rich people's boats in Greece. It's awesome.
Yeah. Hold on. Have you ever seen some news and been like, I need some more of this? Because that's not my experience on the news.
There's whales that are attacking yachts. There are whales intentionally, and it seems as though the mother whale who's got hit by a yacht when she was a kid, and now she attacks yachts, and she's teaching her kids to hate yachts. It does feel like Eat the Rich, but with whales. It's very good.
Radicalization takes time. All right, we're getting there.
Yeah, Baleen the Rich is exactly strain the rich back out into the water is exactly what. It's great.
Look, in my defense, for every fun whale uprising, there's I don't know, let's say 3,000 stories that are either the saddest thing I've ever heard, right, or a happy version of the saddest thing I've ever heard, which is not better. Right, where it's just this one time we saved someone, from this thing, right? Isn't that amazing?
You are generally right. I'm against the news. I just wish you got the good ones, which are aliens and whales. But
look, no. Here's the thing. I realized that all the news things are basically just person you don't like does thing that you don't like. That's most of the news stories. That you actually don't have to know what anyone says. You're just like, oh, this makes sense, right?
Yeah,
or
you're right.
It's somehow things have gotten worse is another news story that you just that's copy paste. You don't really need to actually know specifically. Or it's or this one time things weren't so bad.
You've convinced me. I'm unsubscribing to the New York Times today. Okay, so there's a SOFAR channel in the ocean, and we know that we found it. So let's say you're a scientist after World War II. The war's over. And the Cold War has started, and you know that there's a sound channel in the ocean that has to do with the changing temperature and the changing pressure. So if that exists in the ocean, what else in the world might behave that way? Where else might that exist?
Butts.
It might exist in butts. So you start putting microphones in butts, and you're going to get So if that happens in the water, it probably happens in the air, right? Because air is the same way. Air is just water upside down, and the temperatures get colder as you go up, and the pressure gets less. So there's a point in the air where there is a SOFAR channel where if you have a microphone in the right place in the air, you can hear basically all around the world in that layer.
That's very cool.
So during the Cold War, Professor Ewing is working on this idea now, and he wants to spy on things like Russian missile tests. But in order to do that, it's much easier to lower a microphone into the water and hold it at that depth by having that much chain than it is to put it up in the air and have it be exactly in the right place if you're a kilometer up. The only way you can do it is with balloons. And so they called in. This ties really well into my thing from a couple weeks ago when we did the Variety episode about weird American companies' side hustles. General Mills, the cereal company, also made high-altitude balloons for the military. They took a break from Blueberry to make these massive vinyl balloons that could float in the SOFAR channel in the air.
In their defense, they said their mills were general. That could cover anything.
Yeah, that's
exactly right. Yeah. We can mill balloons.
Whenever you want,
we'll
mill it.
We'll change our mills to do. Yeah, we can mill nukes whenever you want. So they wanted to find out when Russians blew up bombs, and that sound and the mushroom cloud would go up into the sky it would travel through the sound channel. So if you could hang microphones, you know exactly when and where by triangulating where they did this. So the General Mills built them these big balloons called skyhook balloons, and they hung them up in the air, and they had these trailing kites of different pieces of foil and wood to make different sound reflecting things, and they had microphones and stuff on them. So they're like weather balloons, but they're bigger and they're covered in technology. And one of these balloons crashed in Roswell, and then the government covered it up. And what they said later was, it's just a weather balloon, and everyone was like, that's not a weather balloon, look at all this stuff on it. And that is true, it did have a lot of stuff on it, but what it was a skyhook balloon. They look like classic UFO sightings, because this was in the time of the early films, black and white films, so they tended to be white spheres.
Yeah.
What?
50s sci-fi boom. Like,
yeah, exactly.
movies,
Perfect
books,
timing for the 50s sci-fi
nickel.
boom. These looked like, balloons. And if you remember the Chinese spy balloon from last year, Anthony, I say, because Ezra obviously didn't read the news.
Never heard of it, yeah.
Never heard of this. But what happened was there was one Chinese spy balloon, and then we were like, hey, we've shut down 7 other things. And then like a few weeks later, they were like, that was just like a Boy Scout project. We feel really bad. None of those were spy balloons. Because we just can't tell what stuff is when it's floating, and you don't know what. It's just hard.
I mean, it's like the game Area 51. You shoot first, right?
Exactly, and then you decide if they're a person later. It's exactly like that. All right, so that by the way, that's called Project Mogul. The plan to like hang these microphones up in the sound channel in the air and listen. That's why I was talking about all this Project Mogul. It didn't work great. It turns out it's really hard to have balloons stay at exactly the right height for a long time. This is why one of them crashed in Kentucky. Like balloons go wherever the heck they want.
Yeah.
Can we do it with drones now?
So, well, it actually what ended up replacing it was U-2 spy planes. So we were like, we're better at making a plane that can fly at a very high altitude for a very, very long time than we are at making a balloon that can float in the right place and stay put. It also turns out we can like listen to very carefully to seismometers that listen to for earthquakes, because when you set off a nuclear bomb, seismographs around the world will hear it, and you can do the same triangulation from the tiny, tiny earthquake that travels through the Earth's rock. So we figured out easier ways to do it than balloons. Balloons are almost never the answer. Like, for whatever the question is, if you think the answer is balloons, 9 times out of 10, you're wrong. Ez.
Yeah.
Fun party animal thing.
An animal is still better than a balloon animal.
I'd take an animal for balloon animal,
I mean,
for
what
sure.
about like as like an activity? Because like balloon swords, like all those things like that. I've gone to parties.
I'd take a pool noodle over a balloon sword.
There's a very hot balloon guy who.
How about this, Alex? Alex, you're with a bunch of friends.
Yeah.
You're with a bunch of scumbag friends at 3 a.m. doing whippets. How else are you going to do it unless you have a punch balloon, huh?
I do not know what that means, but you're right. Okay, that's
wait.
the one time. I thought it was a paper bag. I've never
Is the
done
balloon
whippets.
filled with punch? No. Is the balloon punch?
No.
What's the punch balloon?
A punch balloon is the type of like really stretchy balloons that can like kind of inflate. And you take a CO2 canister and you fill the balloon with the CO2. So this way you can breathe it in and then blow it back on the boot and breathe it in again. And you do that over and over again until you kill most of your brain.
This is not all right.
Super high for like a
bad
minute.
idea. Don't do this. Just in case.
No, of course, we're going to disclaim it. It's a balloon-based thing. Of course it's a bad idea.
Whippets are a really bad idea. They're kind of fun to do once, though.
We've covered a lot of ground in our first 2 mini-stories. So we talked about Jantelagen with Anthony. I talked about Project Mogul. And now, Ezra, you have proposed you are going to tell us a story about your middle school teachers. So this is part 3 of our shallow dives. Tell us about your middle school teachers, Ez.
So I'm going to talk about middle school. Was not the best time for me for sure, but I had some pretty great teachers. I think part of the weirdness of the school experience was that I made the shift from public school to private school for like 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
You were the other way.
Yeah.
You were the one who was too socialized.
I mean, I was public school smart going into it, but I was not ready to be private school smart. Like it was like I went from like top percentile to like very middling. That's where they were hiding all the Spartans.
Okay.
But there's, I mean, like amazing experiences generally, like that were somewhat like traumatic. But like the teachers, I thought across the board were really good. The one I wanted to start with was my 8th grade math teacher. I don't know if I should do names or not, I guess. But like, let's just say.
Did he get arrested or was he a good teacher?
She was a great teacher.
She was a great teacher. Then
she was a
yeah,
great
you
teacher.
can use a name of a good teacher.
Okay, amazing
I didn't
teacher.
mention all the various high school teachers at my public school who got arrested.
Okay,
later.
so my amazing teacher. So we had a first name basis. So Jen, because it was a cool school. My cool eighth grade teacher, Jen, she said that she was the queen of partial credit. And the thing I loved about this was sort of like the as a guiding principle of like, hey, like I'm going to start with like trying to give you as many points as possible. Right? Like that is my goal here. So like if you don't know the whole thing, it's okay if you're like say like half-assing, through your way, like you will get like half-ass worth of credit. Like that's okay. Like I'm not going to try to do zero it out. And I love that as like for someone who maybe had a tough time making decisions sometimes, I'd had this idea of like, what if I just gave myself partial credit on a lot of things, right? Like what if I, when I later, became a parent, one of the philosophies Sarah and I had was like, what if we just, in our lives when we're struggling, look, we're probably going to suck, but what if we only suck a little bit, right? Like in terms of like, we're like, we're going to like, yeah, like we're not going to be like calling people back all the time, but what if we just like only partially are bad friends right now during this time?
So like you go to Disneyland with your kids, you bring 2 of 3 of them back home with you. You're like,
Partial
that's
credit.
a
I
high
mean,
C.
We tried to do it in a way where it's like these are all safe situations to be bad. But
Sure,
I think
yeah,
the
yeah,
idea
that's
of
probably
like
smart.
right. But generally like the idea of not being terrible. Like I guess this idea of it's a you don't have to just be like, oh, this is either 100% or 0. That kind of like a little bit of a wiggle. That was a nice kind of like guiding principle, I think, both in like that class and also later in life. A couple other like shout outs I wanted to give to like other good moments of, I want to say like, I don't know, they were notable, they're half-assery. Amazing teacher, Mr. Mackey, my 7th grade teacher for science. I loved the reckless disregard he had at some points for safety.
That's a great science teacher.
So in such a cool way. This
Like a
is good.
science
Really
teacher
cool.
with singed eyebrows. That's how you know you're in really
That's the
good
only
shape.
kind.
Yeah,
I
so,
love it.
So do you guys know about sodium?
Oh
I
yeah.
know a little bit about it. Yeah.
Okay, so in normal form, right? Table salt, sodium chloride, pretty boring. Salty makes things taste good.
It's dope. I love it. It's very
Yeah.
good.
Take sodium on its own, though, just straight up sodium,
Yeah.
and it will explode if it touches water.
Yeah, it
and so we
hates
had
water.
a
It gets so mad.
A giant thing, basically, a giant, like, I don't know, I want to say maybe a 50-gallon barrel of water in the middle of the room, and he just hucked a large glob of sodium into it, and it just hit it just like shot up in fire and like hit the ceiling. It was glorious.
Yes.
I loved it.
Oh,
he had
that's a
this
good
idea
teacher.
also basically he was just a cool kind of little sarcastic guy, and this idea, like, think about it. What is the least astonishing conclusion, right? So anytime something is happening that you don't understand it's probably pretty boring, honestly.
Right.
And this is apparently, I did not know this, but it's a principle of least astonishment. That is a real thing.
Also very related to the first 2 witnesses at that congressional aliens hearing where they are like, I was flying and I saw a blob and I didn't know what it was. It must be aliens.
Yeah.
There are less astonishing conclusions you could come to from that.
Right. So I think there's where it's like remarkable evidence, or like remarkable conclusions require remarkable evidence, basically some version of that, right? Where it's like you're going to need a lot. And if you're surprised, you got to look into it a lot and really like without a shadow of doubt. And I like the idea of just like, oh, like this is things might be a little bit boring, and that's kind of cool. Like you can use that.
Like the simplest answer is usually the correct.
Yeah,
It's kind of like
right.
Occam's
Occam's
razor,
razor.
but I like just not making it not astonishing is a really smart way to say that. I like
Yeah.
that. I want to talk just this picture you put in here.
Yes.
Of the math problem that says must show work to receive credit. This is the opposite of your teacher's partial credit rule. I was very, very good at math as a child, and it was super easy. And one of the worst parts of school for me early on was they would give me a math problem and I would know the answer and I would write the answer down, and then they would be like, no credit, you didn't show the steps. And I was like, the steps are, you say it to me and I know the correct answer. That's the work. I've showed you the work. I'm not going to make up steps in the middle that I didn't take. That's craziness.
Okay, so I guess this is the same kind of idea that the other way of phrasing the same idea that my teacher had, which is that like show the work because you might be wrong, and then I'll still give you credit for the work. So it's more like
Totally.
if it's a hedge basically,
you
as
could-
opposed.
Yeah,
You're
if you tell me each of these questions is worth 10 points for the correct answer, but if you get the wrong answer in the right steps before it, I'll give you 9. Great.
Yeah.
I'll take that chance every time because the answer is just there. I don't know why I know it. And I do think there is something about teaching kids who can do the math in their head to keep using their heads and not be like, stop doing this. Do this worse. You have to do this worse.
So I think the interesting thing about this all on the whole, so that's the difference between like half-assing and no-assing, right? So like half-assing, I think, has a core of something good, and maybe don't polish it all the way. There's a no-ass version, right? Or maybe a full-ass. No, I don't know.
Is ass good or bad in this story? It's hard to tell.
Well, who knows? We know that half-ass is a fine way to be. There's one more middle school story that I wanted to get to, I guess.
Yeah, please. It looks like we're about to do a quiz.
Yes, there's a game. So Barry Bishop was my 7th grade math teacher. I have to say both names because that was like we always called him that.
Full name, huh?
Yeah, so you said we're at a cool school where we were on a first name basis, used one first name, one last name, and then both names.
It's weird, right? I guess we had to do a 1-by-1 relationship. This is just how it was for all of them.
I mean, Barry Bishop is good. He's got like that.
He was super cool. Yeah,
I love the
alliteration
name for sure.
Barry Bishop was amazing. He was also a pool shark, I want to say, as well, because he was just so good at geometry.
Oh, nice.
It's just like it's a good.
The only real pool shark I know these days is also a high school math teacher. So I wonder if there's a correlation there.
Yeah, I mean, we got probably there's a small subset of like good at angles and needs extra money. That probably does hit that.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, I knew a lot of pool hustlers back in the day because when I played hooky from school, we would go hang out at the pool hall at like 10 in the morning, and that's when you meet the good ones. But the only retired pool hustler I know became a math teacher so that he could settle down and not be in the train every day to a new town.
Isn't it crazy? I was thinking about talking to my wife about this. We were watching something and when someone was pool hustling. It's wild that people still fall for that. I guess that really says something about hubris and kind of like...
It's definitely much less of it. This is definitely something that died out in the 30s and 40s mostly. There was some more of it in the 80s, but it's been mostly gone for a while because people just don't gamble on pool, really.
But if you're out at pool and some drunk guy comes up and loses a game, then it's like, let's make it really worth their while. Here's $200. And you put $200 down and the guy hustles you. It's like, how did you not see that coming? What do you think this drunk guy came over
that's a bad version of it because people don't gamble on just a game's outcome in pool very often anymore. But have you seen The Hustler?
I think. Wait, which one's
It's
that?
the greatest pool movie of all time. It's actually no. It's Paul Newman. This is the one that Color of Money is like a 50-year later sequel to. But yeah, Paul Newman is the hustler, and it's such a good movie, and it's not really about pool hustling. It's really about alcoholism, but. The opening hustle that they do in that movie, I think you could probably pull off today, which is 2 hustlers are playing pool. He makes an impossible trick shot. And then the other guy is furious at him and is like, you can't do that again. I'll give you $100 if you can do that again. And then he's like, sets it up and he's drunk, obviously, but he does it again. And then now people are like hearing this and they're coming over, they're interested, and he's like, $1,000, you couldn't do that again. He's like, I'm not going to take your money, buddy. We're not going to hang out anymore. I won't take your money. And eventually someone in the crowd is like, I'll take that bet. I bet you $1,000 you couldn't do it again. And then he does it again because he's the shark. Yeah. And then he leaves town. What my pool hustler friend did, Buzz, the later math teacher, retired pool hustler, he was like not even hustling for money the same way. What he would do is he'd go to a town, he would show up at the pool hall, he'd be like, who's the best pool player in town? And then he would play that person and beat them. And then not for money, but just like put on a show, destroy them. And then he'd put up a sign-up sheet and be like, I'm going to be back here next Tuesday and I'm teaching lessons for $100 a lesson. And then he would just have a sign-up sheet for where you go. And then he would go to the next town and beat that best player and put up and then he would come back through the week later and do the same tour and just teach lessons to all the people he had impressed. So it was less hustling and more just like making a living being a pool teacher, but traveling.
It's kind of like a pool cuck. Like he comes over, he fucks the best guy in town, and then he's like, "I will teach you how to."
I'm not going to tell Buzz that you said that, but yeah, sure.
He kind of just cucked that whole city's pool scene.
I don't love that version of it.
As I want to hear the story.
Okay, Barry was really fun. I liked it a lot, and we were in like the more advanced math class basically in 7th grade, and when we had extra time, there was, I don't know if this is half-assed exactly, but he would kind of fill the rest of the class if we had finished early with this game called Cutthroat that needs 2 dice and needs basically like 2 rows of basically of 4 like places, kind of like imagine like blank spots basically where you're going to put numbers in. Okay. We played the game. You're trying to put it in. The game is fun, is hard, is challenging a little bit. It is also possible to cheat at because
How?
if
Tell
you
me. That's
wait,
all I want to know.
Okay, so if you wait, basically, if you don't put the numbers down right around, we're working in pencil. Okay, if you wait and get all the numbers,
then you arrange them.
You arrange them the right way. Okay. And so we did have a cheating scandal basically where someone made some really weird calls where like say they're putting like like Alex you did, like putting a 1 in the thousands and then they got another 1 and they put it in the other thousands, right?
Right.
The way you'd win where it's just like this is a wild way to do it, right? You wouldn't do it that way. And there's also a little bit of like an eraser mark.
Okay. So this is pretty basic ass cheating.
And I guess the thing is, wrapping it all together, one, difference between maybe 0 assing versus half assing. Like this is not quite right. They did not show their work in this way, I guess, and so they're not getting partial credit. And the least astonishing conclusion, absolutely, was that they were cheating. This is a thing that that they'd seen a lot of times before.
The other, actually, one more quick hustling thing. In middle school, probably in high school. In high school, I taught myself how to rig a coin toss, which I can still mostly do. By you flip a coin, catch it, flip it over on your back of your palm. That's plenty of time in that flipping over motion for me to feel the head or tail and then flip it one extra time in my hand without you noticing. And it took a lot of practice. And then it did get harder because they replaced quarters with all the states quarters. They all feel different now. But if I get a regular ass quarter, I can still get I could flip heads 9 out of 10 times. And I've never used that for evil. That was just a thing I learned because I thought it would be useful to cheat at something, but I've never gotten an opportunity to cheat at it.
Yeah, no, I've done the you can read a quarter on your whether it's heads or tails and guess a head or tail cost. I'm not necessarily force it to be heads, but I can. Oh,
so you're saying when you flip it over, you could know what it is just by feel.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool. I never thought of that.
Yeah,
mine was I wanted to change it so you could call it in the air and you'd be wrong every time.
Wait, you could do it so someone could always win then.
Yeah.
Yes, you could also set up somebody to always win. I don't know why you would, but you could.
Because you're nice and they deserve it.
I think it's really funny that you two had these middle school games. When I was in middle school, quarters was really big.
Oh, I played quarters.
Where you would put your fists down.
Yeah.
And you would have people slaying quarters. And we also used to play this game called the ABCs.
That game was also called Bloody Knuckles, what you were just describing.
Yeah, but we would take an eraser or your fingernail, and we would start scratching the back of your hand. And while the person scratching went with A, and you have to say a word that began with A, B, and you have to go through the whole alphabet.
You're like, what if an improv game had torture as one of its components?
Essentially, yeah.
That is
it was
torture enough on its
own. It was
a
really big thing in my middle school, and I still have a scar on this hand.
Do you really?
From getting a bunch of my skin removed.
Because you wanted to win.
Because everyone did. It was. I saw so many kids with just fucked up back of their hands.
Oh yeah.
Based off this game.
Did you ever play Butts Up?
Oh, well, yes. With a tennis
ball wall game where you're trying to get it on one hop, but that if you miss, the person who loses has to go stand against the wall and everyone throws the tennis ball at your back. Any game that has a punishment phase we liked when I was in elementary school.
You know what? I think the thing is, so public school, there's punishment stuff. We play Butts Up. I think private school is much more about psychological damage. So
I think that'd be true. Yeah. I can picture you rolling into private school though, being like the world weary traveler who's like, you guys don't even know about Butts Up here, and they're like, he said butt, and then you teach them all the bad games. You're the guy who ruins Pleasantville so that you masturbate and a tree catches on fire.
I would have loved to have that been true.
All right, I think it's time to do an ad. We got a new sponsor this week on the show. This week's show is brought to you by the Awesome Coffee Club, which is a coffee subscription program from John Green, where 100% of the profits go to charity. So you can buy, and it doesn't have to be a subscription. You can buy a subscription, or you can buy coffee one-off. They have light roast for people with taste, dark roast for Ezra's wife, and you can get Paradox decaf coffee. So the idea of the Awesome Coffee Club, though, is that all of the profits are donated to reduce maternal and childhood mortality in Sierra Leone through Partners in Health. So this is John Green from the novel. This is his coffee company. He's also got a sock company that doesn't sponsor us, but the Awesome Coffee Company does. And I really like their coffee. I know our number one thing is hot drinks. So I was on the prowl for a hot drink sponsor for the show, and I have settled on the Awesome Coffee Company. If you use the promo code Alex Falcone, that's all one word, my name, Alex Falcone, at checkout, you can get 30% off.
Alex, can you do promo codes for all the possible misspellings of your name also?
You know, the way this, that would be an awkward email to send, but we'll see. If I can, I'll ask if I can get more promo
with
codes.
PH, without the E, you know, like just a double
Would
L.
that help this company sell more coffee and help more mothers in Sierra Leone?
Absolutely. I mean, for sure. Actually, can you just do all possible words? Can you just ask for that?
No matter what somebody types at the promo code, we get a cut and they get 30% off.
They meant us, whatever they typed.
That was what it's for, yeah. So join the Awesome Coffee Club, awesomecoffeeclub.com. Sign up for either a single time or a recurring coffee subscription, which is my favorite way to just have the coffee always be here and not ever run out of awesome coffee. And use the promo code Alex Falcone for 30% off. And thank you to John and the Awesome Coffee Club for sponsoring
pitch on this?
the show. Yeah, please.
Guys, do you like drugs that are pretty legal? Like,
I don't know if John would approve this.
These are drugs that people don't get mad at you for taking. You get to talk about these drugs with everyone else in the country. And they're like, did you have your drugs today? You're like, yeah, and my drugs helped people. And they're like, that's pretty great. That's pretty great to have that.
AwesomeCoffeeClub.com. We'll see. We'll see if they like that. They didn't give us official copy to read, so we can do whatever we want. But just make sure you use the promo code Alex Falcone, AwesomeCoffeeClub.com.
Are you tired of like being a snob about cocaine and want to be a snob about something people actually take pride in?
I think this might be too far for this sponsor.
Keep it
this
going.
might be our
Keep
last
it going.
sponsor on the show. Let's go. All right, and now it's time to rank half-assing on the master list.
It's got to be right in the middle, right? It has to be.
We will find out, but first, the master list is brought to you by awesomecoffeeclub.com. Ezra, before we rank this, though, I'd like you to give us a quick refresher. Ezra, as fast as you can, I would like you to read all 22 items on the master list, which is starting with warm beverages brought to you by the Awesome Coffee Club.
Okay. Number 1, warm beverages brought to you by the Awesome Coffee Club. Number 2, firefighters. 3, Zelda. 4, arcades. 5, women's basketball. 6, kids. 7, My Neighbor Totoro. 8, pro wrestling. 9, romance novels. 10, trees. 11, Star Wars. 12, advice columns. 13, variety. 14, the sun. 15, fresh bread. 16, Nordic track. 17, stand-up comedy. 18, powerlifting. 19, cat videos. 20, Halo with the boys. 21, new metal. And 22, for now, Waffle House.
You definitely lost some steam about halfway through that list. I feel like
we've been doing this thing for a while, guys.
We have gotten up to this is impressive. This is our 23rd ranking.
Next time I could just be like really good stuff, medium good stuff, and then not that great stuff. I'm just gonna say that.
I do think because people can't all look at it unless they're watching at home on youtube.com/AlexFalcone. But if they're not, I feel like they might not be able to remember all the things, and so it's good to have somebody reread it. But I appreciate you struggling through it.
I'm going to start out with this sort of it kills me every week when we have Hunter read the list and he gets to variety, the concept of variety.
It's various things.
It really hurts how much he just has a clear disdain for it.
Yeah.
And I feel like half-assing it is very similar.
Uh-huh.
So I feel like if we put it up too high, it's gonna not be good. I couldn't do half-assing it. The idea of half-assing it and variety, just the idea of variety every week from now on. You know.
So so you're saying you want them next to each other, so he has to disdain two things?
I'm saying we have it at the end. I think we should, as a podcast that like prides itself on all of us clearly doing a crazy amount of work and research each week.
Yep, all three of us doing the same amount of work.
Yeah.
Yep.
We definitely do not half-ass it here. So
I
I
think
I
that-
think it should be low on
Like,
the list.
So I'm
That's
gonna
my
I'm gonna come up with a take before you do, Ez, which is sure, that's fine.
I think that actually is similar to my take in that no matter where you put half-assing it will not care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's why would I care? So I think the correct half-ass is first take, best take. Anthony's decision is that this is 23. I'm fine.
No. I look. I think I put it above Waffle House. Wait, no, actually, no. You know what it is? It's gotta be. I think it's gonna be above New Metal because wouldn't it have been better? Wouldn't New Metal have been better if they didn't try so hard?
One of the
Yeah, that's
things
true.
about Slipknot is they really did put a lot of effort into it.
And
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
some people maybe should have used only
This
half their
totally
ass.
ruins my take, but sure, that's fine. I'm also good with that.
You have to
Yeah.
be. I think that's right.
Structurally, I think that I have to be okay with it. So that makes this the new 21. I'm not gonna accept any new ideas for this, new suggestions. Why is this so hard for me?
Oh, did you read it in a way?
I'm just dragging the wrong part.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh man,
improved
you
this.
lost your ass.
This is the one downside to half-assing it is that sometimes you
Sometimes you end up
have to do
carrying.
2 or 3 tries. But that's fine with me. All right, the new 21st best thing ever is half-assing it, just above New Metal and Waffle House, and that's the new master list. So good work,
and I
everybody.
think we should observe the law of Yunter for
Oh,
the
yeah.
end of the show and not brag about it, not gloat about a placement on the list. Just sort of like it is what it is. It's
Yeah.
cool. The list is what's important. Its place on the list is not what's important.
I have nothing to
You
teach
know?
the list.
Right.
Yeah,
And also,
um,
if the people listening to this, if they are not laughing at us, that's okay too, right? Like
That's fine.
we made our peace with
We
it.
better be okay because there are large portions of this were not funny. All right, let's do some business and then go home. So I mentioned, Anthony, you had the one quibble on YouTube, but you also got another comment that's Anthony-related. Prof Parm commented they just finished listening to Season 5 of the podcast. This is our last season of Read It and Weep, our old podcast, and the discussion about Gran Turismo that Hunter brings up. Around minute 15, Anthony perfectly predicts what the movie was going to be based on the current trailers of it. Anthony, I don't know how you Rain Manned what Gran Turismo movie was going to be, but you nailed it, apparently. I have no memory of any of this conversation, obviously,
No.
but you nailed it, buddy. Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, thanks. I guess it's kind of a feel. I mean, I don't. Maybe I had read like an early synopsis, or like the movie was announced already at that point. Maybe not. I honestly don't know. I do kind of feel like my guess of like, what if it was like the Last Starfighter, but with
But
Gran
cars.
Turismo makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. So
but
no one's
yeah,
made that
I-
movie in a little while.
You know that movie, I want to say it looks really bad. I think David Herber is an actor I really like. He needs a better agent. And man, Neil Blomkamp really makes me sad. I remember leaving District 9 and I looked over to my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and I said to her, like, we just saw the first film from somebody who's going to be a legendary filmmaker. Right? Because District 9 is such an impressive
Right, yeah.
debut with such a point of view and so much vision behind it. It was like
And that did not
we're going to
happen.
be, and instead we saw the one good movie a filmmaker ever made, and has done nothing but garbage.
I feel like this
since
is a
then.
wonderfully humble point for you
And
to make
it's-
here, which is somebody was telling you that you were really insightful about the future of a director's career, and you were like, but I used to be wrong.
Yes,
That's nice of you.
I once was so excited for his potential, and I have disliked every movie he has made since then. I haven't even seen some of them. Maybe they're good, but I saw a handful of them. I saw Chappie, and man, I don't even know what the fuck was going on there.
Well, I appreciate your pointing out that Anthony was once correct, Prof. Parm. That's good to know. And also thanks, Thomas, for writing in about Max Martin and giving us an excuse to talk more about him. Next week, we will be back with a new episode, Are Chickens the Best Thing Ever? That is our topic for next week. Are chickens the best thing ever? We will find out with the help of our friend Phoebe Bottoms on next week's episode. But now we got to get out of here. Our theme music is by @Metrix. Our logo design is by @TomTypography. We're on Instagram @BTE Pod, and on YouTube you can watch along with our wonderful visual aids youtube.com/AlexFalcone. You can also leave us an honest 5-star review at Apple Podcasts, and you can email us mail@bestthingeverpodcast.com. You can support the show and the great work that John Green is doing in Sierra Leone by becoming a member of the Awesome Coffee Club, awesomecoffeeclub.com/AlexFalcone. To sign up, you can also use the promo code AlexFalcone at checkout, and you will get 30% off your first order, which is excellent. You can also become a Patreon. You can support us more directly, patreon.com/BTEpod. Some of the great Patreons who help keep the show running, we call them producers at this level, are the Ranger Patrick, John the Consigliere, the Duke of Jail, Best Assistant Regional Manager Sean, and Claire, still TBD. Probably should reach out to Claire about what job title they would like. Now, let's find out who lied and who did not lie. In the opening segment, 2 hosts and a lie. I was the liar 2 weeks in a row. The lucky helmet pulled me as the lie this week. I did not win an oldies themed trivia contest.
Did the oldies?
But I want to say, for me,
did they just
partial credit for having a believable lie.
Did the oldies crush you in your in the trivia?
I don't know. It seems like a thing that probably happens. I've never done oldies trivia.
Well, I know. I thought the lie was that you won. I thought you actually just got destroyed by them.
No, I made this up from scratch. This is whole cloth, man.
Yeah, but I mean, everyone knows you haven't listened to any new music since the music died. Since that
since the day the
that
music died,
fateful
yeah.
plane crash.
That was my lie. You caught me. But Ezra cannot roll his tongue or his R's. He was not sandbagging. That was his best effort.
That's real.
That was
and also,
credit.
Alex, in 2 years, Neil Blomkamp will make a movie about you. Just on a trivia contest, just getting destroyed. That's I think that's you predicting the future now.
I'd watch that movie.
Yeah, I'd watch that too, especially if I'm in it. I have so much to teach.
You'll be like, the story with the Gran Turismo movie is that it's based off a true story, and the person it's based off is doing the stunt driving, but he's not in the movie.
Oh, so
he's playing himself when he's driving.
Part. Huh.
Yeah, but he's not in the movie. That's what you'll be. You'll do your own stunts, but you will not be playing yourself. That is how the movie will go.
You did miss Nick Cage. He came in when you were working at a shop. He came in when you were not there.
I've never regretted anything since as much.
That was when he was in Portland filming Pig, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Man, that movie made it seem like Portland had a much more interesting underground food and fight club scene than it really does.
You don't know shit about what you're talking about. All of that's real. That's all based off. It's basically a documentary. You know.
I mean,
you're
I know
Alex,
that
you're not invited to those things, all right? My brothers are cooks. I've been to some crazy shit, all right? You don't know.
All right, that's possible. All right, so that was all. That's the truths and the falses. You can follow me, Alex Falcone, on TikTok, Alex_Falcone on TikTok, and at Alex Falcone on Threads. I post occasionally. Also, Ezra has a newsletter. Delete this newsletter.substack.com. Thanks for being here, Ez.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Shout out to the teachers that made you who you are today.
Yeah.
The partial credit, half-assing
partial credits
guy you are.
Teachers. Yeah.
And Anthony Lopez, thanks for joining us. Thanks for giving us more, teaching us more about Scandinavia.
I'm very humbled to be here today. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll talk to everybody next week. Bye.
Bye.